Hi, I'm Jack Barazzini, and you're listening to The Secret to Stargate, where we talk about the hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies, TV series, and more. And joining me today are Jeff Haecker. Hello, Jeff.
Jack.
And Lisa Jones. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Jack.
And Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Jack.
Today we are discussing the 15th episode of Season 2 of Stargate Atlantis, The Tower. Shepard's team discovers a society protected by a tower that turns out to be Atlantean city ship, much like Atlantis, which uses drone weapons for defense against the Wraith. The local Lord Protector, possessing the ancient technology activation gene, attempts to marry his daughter, Mara, to Shepard to strengthen their royal bloodline, but he is poisoned by Otho, who seeks to usurp the throne. Meanwhile, McKay gets trapped underground while attempting to find a ZPM and must use a drone to escape. As the village's revolt erupts and the drones are activated in retaliation, Shepard, realizing Otho's treachery, orders McKay to dangerously deplete the tower's ZPM by charging its star drive, successfully deactivating the drones. Shepard then escapes, confronts and disarms Otho, who succumbs to his own poison, leading to the Atlantis expedition providing aid and a new government system for the villagers. This is yet another episode where Shepard gets to mac on a girl from another planet. So
he gets to kirk it up.
Now, I understand that you hate this episode, Jeff.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It was the worst episode of Stargate ever. No, I'm kidding. No, I like this one. It was an interesting idea because we haven't really seen in Atlantis that the idea of using it, a society using Atlantean technology in like a caste system kind of a way. Like we've seen some that have some Atlantean technology, or there's remnants of it, and it kind of functions for the whole society. But we haven't really seen it work like this, where it's a caste system. And the gene has been passed down and is used kind of as those who can use the technology are the royal, or leaders of whatever. So I like that idea, and I thought it was interesting, and yeah, it would kind of create like a court, and a people fawning over the Lord Protector, wanting to become, marry into the bloodline and whatnot. So I did like that idea, and I thought it was executed well. And the idea of the city ship, because we haven't seen another one, I don't believe, in the show yet, other than Atlantis. So it is cool seeing the idea of the city ships being around, and I can't remember if we see other ones in the rest of the show, but overall I like this one, and it was kind of a cool idea of mixing the old Atlantean technology with like an ancient, or a medieval, kind of Renaissance type of society. So I liked it.
What about you, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm with Jeff. I really liked this episode. It was, I thought it was interesting. I'm with Jeff. I liked the idea of it, of the gene, really setting apart the ruling class from the peasants. And I shouldn't say peasants, that sounds bad, but from the people who farm. I did think it was this episode was a really good example of how the cast, the main characters, can split up and do different things, and it works, and it's still interesting, and they all are being productive. You weren't just having, Taylor and Ronan stand there. I mean, Ronan got to go kill a guard and cause trouble, and McKay's running around underground by himself, with that guy. But
with Baldrick.
He's not like scared doing it. He's doing it and finding things and being productive. And then of course Shepard, finding the cute girl again, and getting treated like a prince about it. But no, I really enjoyed it. I thought it had lots of good twists and turns, and you weren't sure what was going on, and a lot of characters that you were interested in. And you have to say "come try ya" when you watch this episode, right? What was it like? Yeah, come try ya. Yeah.
Yeah, it did definitely have that vibe. What about you, Victor?
Yeah, I like this episode too. I mean, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of story in it, but it's also kind of silly. I mean, the tower civilization, is full of effete nobles, and they really play it up too with their costuming. Like everybody wears these really outlandish, 17th, 18th century, garb, and it's all bright and colorful. And they put in some good contrast between, the villagers eating their thin gruel. And then the very next scene they cut to is like this guy just like devouring a tomato whole as everybody just like gorges on this huge feast. So I liked the scenes. I really liked Peter Woodward as Otho, who they brought in from Los Angeles. I know him as mostly as playing Ra's al Ghul on the Batman Brave and the Bold TV show, but he's been in other things as well. He does an excellent job as the Chamberlain and ultimate, backstabber almost. But so I really liked his performance. And yeah, like Lisa, I like that everybody had something to do, and it's interesting the idea of another, sister city to Atlantis being buried underground on this remote planet was very exciting. So yeah, I like this episode a lot.
The Otho actor was also in Babylon 5.
Oh, okay.
The spinoff. He was, I forget what they're called. He was one of like the techno wizards or whatever they're called.
Oh, the techno mages or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Techno mages. Yeah. I think he was the one on the Excalibur ship that went with them on their mission. So,
I still need to watch that. Crusade, or what was that one called?
Show. Yeah. Crusade. There it is. Yeah. Not the best Babylon 5 show, but it's,
yeah.
Enough. But yeah, he was like their techno mage that kind of went with them on that mission. That's what I mostly remember him from.
Yeah, apparently on that show, the J. Michael Krasinski had, his another epic arc, and the studio was like, no, let's put more sex and violence in it. And he's like, no, that's not the story. And audiences were like, wait, what is this? So yeah, I can't speak for Jack, but I believe he liked it. We can wait a minute or two.
He's trying to find the ZPM.
Yeah, we've lost radio contact with Jack.
I really like that they redressed Atlantis.
Yes,
they just full on. This is the same set, and they just redressed it in all this gaudy fabric and things. And I loved watching Shepard walk into it and be like, "This looks familiar." Like that was very smart.
Yeah, I'm sure the people had a lot of fun doing all that, like getting to like do Ren Fair or Renaissance in Atlantis.
That's true. I didn't think about Ren Fair.
Yeah, apparently this episode had a very short like pre-production period, and so the costumer was just scrambling to get enough costumes for all the nobles and stuff, and I like that all their costumes are completely different. I like that there's a lot of people just kind of in the background or at the table. It feels like a very lived-in city, full of these kind of worthless people. They also redressed the Sodan village set to be the village here as well. So we don't get our indoor village set that we've seen a lot already this season on Stargate. We actually get a different reused village set. So
I was wondering if this was another, we'll say, cost-saving episode because of when I saw that it was the inside of Atlantis, and I thought, well, they didn't have to spend any money there. And then you just said it was a Sodan redressed. So, there wasn't a lot. We did have the drones, flying around, but otherwise it shouldn't have been a very terribly expensive episode for them.
No, I don't think so. They didn't specifically call it out on the commentary, but obviously they're always looking for ways to cut costs. And I thought it was a really effective way to reuse the same sets.
Well, yeah, because we're at the end of the season, and the closer you get to the very end, that's usually where they're saving their big budget money, is to give us some, some big send off for the end of the season. So.
I would say, yeah, and I liked even that there was a suit of armor at one point in one of the shots or in a couple of the shots. So it's thinking of like, has this society did they go through like a medieval period where you had like knights and nobles like that, fighting in the castle or in villages or something? Was there like a war of succession or something over this gene? So, and I like that they have that Otho is like tracking the genealogy of the ATA and like kind of knows what that is, and I guess probably because he's using Atlantean technology, but I like the idea of like tracking the bloodlines through this to try to get the most favorable, develop the strongest bloodline, and
Mm-hmm.
then Atlantis comes in and is like, oh, we can make anybody give anybody this
Yeah.
power because
And Otho adapts to that very well, because as soon as they
Mhm.
mentioned, what if there was a way that anybody could control the chair, you see it's like machinations as wheels start turning. And then of course Beckett says, and here's the gene therapy. We'll trust this to you.
Yeah, just let you hold it.
Yeah. But I did like Otho's laboratory, or his room. As you mentioned, they had all the scrolls and stuff in it. And there's also like various, medieval and Renaissance era, like chemistry and stuff there. There's, jars of creatures in formaldehyde. And apparently, whenever Joe Flanagan's in a scene and is just doing dialogue, he looks for some sort of, as they say, business to do, like just to interact with something to make the scene a little bit more interesting. And he was at one point like just opening up one of the jars and like went to taste it. And they're like, no, that's formaldehyde. Like that'll kill you. So don't do that. But yeah, so I did like how Otho is actually very smart and cunning.
Mm-hmm.
There were, and I've watched this episode twice, once with the commentary. I still don't understand like what his plan was exactly. He was using Mara to get to the throne, and then when he got the gene therapy, he didn't need her anymore. Still was going to marry her to get to the throne. So it was a little, but they do put in kind of a good red herring there with, Eldred? No, not Eldred. Tavius. Tavius, played by Brendan. Yeah. The other child of the protector. Yeah. The son to, Mara's daughter there. So I did like his character, because he's, seems kind of scheming but isn't really. He's just kind of an idiot and, wants to cause trouble. So
Should find it interesting that Shepard comes by his gene naturally, right?
yes.
We don't have any real explanation why, O'Neill has it, Shepard has it, besides it's needed for plot. But that they both have it, and Shepard has a very strong gene, evidently, which we knew that from when he first came on the scenes at the beginning of Atlantis in the pilot. But what I thought was interesting is that here they're talking about how they've been breeding for the gene to keep it strong. And yet Shepard just walks in and has much stronger gene than anyone else that's in the royal line, that's been bred for it. So I thought that was really interesting. I mean, I guess you could argue that they've been doing it longer, but I can't remember. I don't remember the time dates of how long ago the Atlanteans left Atlantis versus left Earth. So
it was like 10,000 years, I think.
Yeah. I mean, when
they left Pegasus.
Yeah. So assuming the ship crashed, in during the Wraith War, let's say, and was overgrown over 10,000 years, but then the Atlanteans came to Earth 10,000 years ago. Did they find a way to strengthen the gene when they were on Earth? Or maybe the inbreeding among the nobles is actually what caused the gene to decay. That's speculation, but you're right. I didn't think of that, but it is an important concern there.
But I love the way Otho noticed that Shepard wasn't impressed by the chair.
No, yeah.
That was important that he noticed it and didn't say anything right away. And I guess Shepard, looking back, should have been like, "Oh wow, what's that? How does that work?"
Yeah, it was also interesting from a set design how the throne chair was the focus of this society instead of the Stargate. Like, because in Atlantis, there's the gate room, which is is kind of the focus of everything, and the throne chair is just kind of off by itself. But in this, the gate is not even in the city. So I mean, I guess only Atlantis had this gate because it was to connect to Earth, or maybe the other ships do have gates. I don't remember if we ever see that in another city ship, but
well, you could argue that they didn't keep the gate in their city because in their galaxy or world, what comes through the gate? The Wraith.
Yeah.
So you want it's kind of like that other one where they had the people, right? Like the little island right in front of the gate. Like you want to put the gate where there's people that the people in power are okay with getting cold first. Is that the polite way to say that?
Yeah, I think so. The serfs, the plebes.
So keep the gate away. Keep the snacks next to the gate for the wraith who might come through it. But they said they hadn't seen wraith in generations, right?
Yeah. Well, I think because there hasn't been a culling in, however, like you said, generations. So, but they have, they have the legends, and the nobles probably propagate that legend too of like only we can protect you, but really they're just using the drones to kind of cow the villages into submission.
But it was one of our first planets we visited, like especially this season, who hasn't said, "Oh, we're hearing that there's more cullings." Like there's, that they're not preparing for it, because all the other planets, like they trade and they keep hearing that the wraith are awakening, that it's getting worse again, and we didn't hear any of that. It's like the people in the tower really. The story of the wraith was really just about how they keep control, not something they were actually fearful of.
Yeah. And of course they enforce it with their constable guards. In the village, they're wearing their hats, and I guess, there was discussion, this is what the writers and producers talk about on Stargate, as to whether or not they should be wearing their hats. Peter DeLuise is a firm believer that you shouldn't wear hats in a scene, because then the scene, in his opinion, becomes about the hat. Everybody just fixates on the hat that people are wearing, and they apparently tune out everything else that's going on in the scene. So, yeah, but I like their hats in this one.
I did notice the hats; they were nice.
Yeah, they were very nice hats. And of course, one of the guards was played by Mark Gibbon, who, if you had a goatee, you would recognize him as Teal'c's, one of Teal'c's Jaffa buddies from the earlier seasons of SG-1. And they did mention that, when they, as they go through the actors that are in Vancouver and tend to, run out of actors, they're like, okay, well, can we bring this person back on Atlantis now? Maybe if we, shave his beard, and, they won't recognize him. Of course, everybody recognized Jay Brazeau as the Lord Protector, as Harlan, but I think he's not in many scenes here, but he's very effective as just someone who is obviously pretty far gone. As we learned from the result of Otho's poisoning, but it was just a real treat to see him again.
And he doesn't use the same voice or mannerisms at all. It actually took me a few minutes. It wasn't until one of his last scenes that I went, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I know who that is.
I didn't even realize until y'all said that earlier that it was him. So
yeah, because in as Harlan, he had this like higher pitched kind of put upon funny voice.
The others,
and this he was just very normal. Yeah.
And Paul Mully, who did the commentary, did say that it, when they have people audition, they can, to play aliens on the show, it's something that they look for is if the people come in and then read it kind of just, in colloquial or, normal dialogue, versus people who can find kind of the not necessarily stilted, but more formal way of speaking, which for some reason on sci-fi shows, and I don't know if it was something that started with Star Trek and Spock, but, to show that they're aliens, even though everybody's speaking English, they talk in a slightly more formal or less, colloquial way. And that's something that they look for. So if you're ever going to audition for Stargate, that's something to consider.
That in mind.
Yeah.
Just say indeed a lot.
Indeed. Yeah. So yeah, this episode gets a little spicy.
Well, it kind of starts out because if you caught one of the first things that Shepard says when they're talking about trading, and McKay's complaining about trade and stuff, and and Shepard says, "Well, they can't all be planets with cool technology and open-minded women." That's like in the first 3 minutes of the episode, because I actually heard that, and I went, did he just say what I think he said? And I rewound it, and I'm like, he did. Look at that. And then we get another one of well, he could have they cut the scene. Like he could have said, like, thank you, but no. Like, thank you, but I'm good.
Instead he
I'm
goes,
sure that's what happened.
"Zoe, nice lady in my bed chambers."
Yeah. But
Oh,
I like
yeah.
the fact that it comes back around that she's working it because she knows what she needs.
Yeah.
She wants to rule, so she knows what she has to do. It's like all these political machinations that are going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they say, or at least to me, it was that Shepard, walked away after he realized what was like that she was wanting him to marry her or whatever. I think at that point maybe before that he wasn't walking away, but at that point he was, because he says something to Otho about, we've got to talk about Mara or something.
He saw like I was good until she mentioned marriage. Like then I'm out. That was interesting. He keeps getting himself stuck in these situations.
Yes, he does. So who's the bigger Kirk, Shepard or O'Neill or Ben Browder, or not Ben Browder, but
Daniel
Cameron
Jackson.
Mitchell. Yeah, Daniel Jackson probably. Yeah, Tilk's up there, but
I think we'll have to sit down, or maybe one of our listeners can just like save us the trouble and let us know. I'm sure somebody's got a tally out there, right? Like, we're only in season 2 though of Atlantis, and Shepard's,
he's getting up there. Yeah,
she wasn't an ancient.
True,
because we just talked about this a couple weeks ago. But she did have the ancient gene, so we'll chalk her up for a pseudo ancient.
Right. So let's see what else is notable about this episode. McKay does a lot of cool stuff with his little friend Baldric. Yeah, he gets some really good scenes here where he's whenever McKay's around, a person who's less advanced, technologically or scientifically than him, of course he's condescending, but you can see him kind of warming up to Baldric in this episode. Where Baldric doesn't want to go down into the catacombs, the part of the city that's buried under the ground. And Kay's like, "I'm not interested in your superstitions." And Baldric's like, "No, there's earthquakes. 3 children died here, recently." And McKay's like, "Oh, okay." And so they go down into the city to look around, and they find that, in fact, there are lots of drones there. So I was happy that at the end, the episode was running short. So the final scene between Weir and Shepard at the end, they wrote, just to use up a little extra time, where they do mention that they were able to reclaim some of the puddle jumpers and drones from the city. So it's a standalone episode, but I like it when there's like, oh, now they have extra stuff that they can use to help them, fight the Wraith.
I was really glad for that, because if you think about it, this planet can't use it. I mean, they've depleted the ZPM. So that saves Rodney from having to steal a ZPM from somebody. So the ZPM is done. And what good is all that stuff going to be there? So I really like that they had that scene that kind of explains, because we've talked about it. How many jumpers now have they lost or destroyed? So at least they're making up and getting some more.
They're doing their best to fix them, but it doesn't help when they crash them into the ocean.
No, I did it. Okay, did anyone else, when Rodney gets trapped underground with the guy, when the cave-in happens, you kind of expected him to have a little bit of a claustrophobic oh no moment?
Yeah.
After the last episode wasn't it just the last episode? Was him
where he
trapped
did
in
have
the puddle jumper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his character is claustrophobic, so they just didn't specifically call it out. And I like that they're trapped underground and they need to get a radio signal up. So Rodney's solution is to take one of the drones and manually activate it, hoping it flies up and creates a shaft, which is kind of a callback to the deactivated drone in Rising that was it Beckett accidentally activates and shoots down O'Neill and Shepard's helicopter. So that was kind of cool. There was some conversation on the commentary that, they like the drones when they're flying around in CG because they look really cool, like these glowing lights, but not everyone in the production was a fan of the, the actual prop that looks kind of like a squid or a jellyfish. It's just kind of sitting there. I kind of like it. I like that it's somewhat organic.
Yeah, and they also were running out of air too, and so that was
Yeah.
they had to shoot the thing to create an air shaft. And it's like, oh, it's either going to crush us or we're running out of air anyway. So
Yep.
But I like that it
And
gave
so
him
we get
something to do.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe he was having visions of Carter during this soft screen.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
Like-
She shows up underground too. Let me tell you what to do.
You
What are
need
you
me?
doing here?
No, we got this under control. Okay. Hallucination Carter out. And then back in the village, things are escalating with Ronan and Taylor. And I really like Taylor's, after they escalate, which we'll get back to. I like Taylor's interaction with Rodney, because Rodney is like, they finally established radio contact, and Rodney is just obsessed with the fact that he's underground. He wants someone to get him out. And Taylor's like, yeah, things aren't really great up here either. And just the look of like, I've had enough of Rodney's, attitude is pretty good. But yeah, so the constables in the village are getting a little handsy with Petra, and who is the wife of Eldred, I think, or daughter or something. And so Ronan intervenes and kills Mark Gibbons' constable character, and they capture the other constables, which is going to bring the wrath of the tower down on them unless McKay and Shepard can do something in time. And so we get a pretty cool shot of all these drones flying up out of the tower and starting to swarm and head towards the village. But Rodney saves the day. And Shepard too, I guess.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting that the only thing, the thing they wanted to do to deplete the ZPM was to turn on the star drive, which seemed like kind of a big thing to do, especially with the city already crumbling the way it was, but there doesn't seem to be any real lasting damage from it. I thought there would have been something a little more, like puddle jumpers or, just walking, running around the city. I feel like if they could have just run around the city and started all kinds of things, So, and then I wasn't quite sure why the city was falling apart so badly. Is it just because it hadn't been used? And so, because Atlantis hadn't been used either, but I guess it had shields and it was sunk.
It had shields, and there weren't people using it, living in it, and it wasn't like overgrown from thousands of years. Because there's another Atlantis coming up. I don't remember exactly when, where we see like another city. Where we see a city ship where it's like been exposed to the elements for a long time, and it's pretty decrepit. So yeah, I think without the shields and maintenance and whatnot, it will eventually kind of break down and decay, even as good as their technology is.
But yeah, we get to see Jason Momoa fight briefly. And my headcanon is that after they get Rodney out of there, he gets to go and eat all the food at the banquet.
That was a cute scene where Rodney's starving and Taylor's like, they don't have anything and they still gave it to you. And he's like, I don't care. We could have just gotten our rations.
We could offer to him, and she's like, they wouldn't have taken it. And he's just like, oh, okay. And then he eats his
and he's like, where are those emergency rations? Yeah.
That scene with the food, where you saw it, side by side like that, kind of reminded me of Hunger Games, because you had the districts were working and very depressed and all of this stuff, and then when you got to the capital, everything was gaudy and vibrant, and lots of, they just like ate food, overate and overdrank and did everything just because they could. But they were taking all the resources from the district. So I know this came out before that, but it just made me think about that in the moment.
Yeah, I guess the first book was written in 2008, which was 2 years after this. So, they could have, Suzanne Collins could have been watching Stargate Atlantis and said, this is interesting. I'll make a book about this.
Very much.
Yeah, and at the end, I was kind of thinking after they take the drones and the jumpers, I'm like, even though they were going to bomb the village or whatever, so you kind of had to do it. But you're leaving this place defenseless. So I was kind of thinking, are they going to leave like have a team with a jumper there at all times, just so they can fight, try to help as a line of defense and call Atlantis if there's more trouble, because they did kind of take away their only defense capability.
Yeah, the ZPM was pretty depleted anyways.
It was, but they could still. I mean, how many drones did Otho try to launch at the village? So they could have at least used up some more. But.
And they completely caused them to abandon their structure of government, of community, of society. I mean, everything's going to have to be rebuilt. So I like how at the end they're like, well, they'll let us know if they need help, when they need help with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Meanwhile, the nobles are all getting dragged through the streets. Their corpses hung up on sticks and stuff.
Like, oh, guys, quit this.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of it was funny thinking of like the son having to like go and work in the fields or something now and like dirty up his hands and his his pretty clothing and stuff.
So what do we think about them dragging Beckett into the middle of this?
Yeah, it was great to see him lugging around his huge case again. I always love it when they make Beckett drag that around. Ronan helps him, but only when he's like finally gets to the village.
And then he's brought like this society doesn't have doctors.
Well, there's Otho, but he's obviously the one poisoning the.
I mean, I'm assuming they have like healers or. Yeah, I'm assuming they have like healers or something, but it's beyond the medicine that they have, and then of course it's poison anyway. So
true,
their medicine wouldn't have done anything.
I was just thinking they've got the Atlantean technology. I mean, they can obviously scan you to see if you have the gene, but they don't have another something there that.
Well, Atlantis really doesn't have healing tech either, because they still have to like use their earth medicine for the most part. So there's not like it's not like Star Trek level healing technology. They still have to do unless they find other stuff down the road. But
it's probably one of those other sections they just haven't gone to yet exploring.
Exactly. We found this sick bay that can heal any wound or injury.
Yeah.
And again, this is the second time this season that Beckett gives like a retrovirus or a gene therapy to someone with, dire consequences. The first being Instinct, where he, gives it to Elia and turns her into a killer bug.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't be the last time either. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is what they give it everyone on Atlantis.
Yeah.
Or at least anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but he's pretty free about passing it out or leaving it where people can find it. It's like, maybe you want to be a little bit more careful with your stuff there.
But on the flip side, nobody mentioned they were from Atlantis.
That's true. They go out of their way not to. Yeah.
Even Shepard to the hot chick, nothing. He didn't say a word. And they get asked a lot. Like Rodney, I forgot the guy's Baltic or something. He asked Rodney several times, like, where have you seen this before? How do you know this? Like, what's going on? And he's like, it's not important. Quit talking to me. So I was appreciative that they.
Yeah, I was gonna say Otho said something to Shepard of, you pretend not to see this, know what this is, but I see that you know more than you're letting on. So.
Mm-hmm. But then they didn't ask any more questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. How? Why? Is there somewhere else we can get more people to marry into our gene pool and strengthen this? Like, how do you come by this gene? Huh. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I really did like the episode.
Yeah. I liked it too. In terms of alternate languages, everything was some variation on the tower. French, we got Le Tour, which is the tower. In Japanese, we get Toto Kizoku, which is tower and nobility. Mm. Yeah. So, I like that. Any other final thoughts on this episode?
No, it was a fun one.
Yeah,
That was a good one.
I liked it too. It was a great cast, and yeah. We're just wrapping up here. What were your thoughts on this episode, Jack?
I thought it was great. Sorry, I just spontaneously ascended and
welcome back. Yeah,
I like this episode too.
Okay. Any we've talked about everything, but anything you want to call out?
Not at this point.
Okay. Excellent. Great. Well, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons, or, I'll turn it over to Jack here.
Well, that was a fantastic conversation that we all had. I'm glad that I was here for most of it.
Really insightful commentary there, Jack. I think most people are going to be shook and also enlightened by your thoughts on this episode.
I think so. Before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of Stargate, including Jason K., Ruth K., Joseph F., Henry L., and Mark K. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of Stargate and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And be sure to follow the shows on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and you can find our video versions at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. To find previous episodes of Secrets of Stargate and to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/Stargate. You can email us at stargate@sqpn.com or follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on X at SQPN. And you can join our SQPN Discord at sqpn.com/Discord, where you can talk about all the very intelligent, insightful comments I made during this episode. And we'll be back next time with the next episode of SG1 Off the Grid. Until then, Jeff Haecker, thank you for joining us and sharing the secrets of Stargate.
It's Jack.
And Lisa Jones, thank you as well.
Thanks, Jack.
And Victor Lambs, thank you too.
Thanks, Jack. And remember, it's not his name, you simpleton. It's his rank.
100%. And once again, I'm Jack Barazzini. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Stargate on StarQuest.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?